All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to Mondays Down South. We're back for another week, the trio. It's about darn time. We were up in the Ashburn, Virginia area, all three of us together, celebrating Thanksgiving with our friends and family. And, I know Thanksgiving is a it's a holiday full of turkey. My parents, they also would like to incorporate ham, maybe a little hot take there. It's a little unusual. But what the MDS boys do is we get ourselves involved in chicken because we went straight to the Wing Factory. We were not going to ignore an opportunity, the biannual trip to the Wing Factory. But this time it wasn't just the trio. My fiance Alexa joined. She was able to meet Evan in person for the first time. Her and I met a couple times at this point, but it was a great time. We were all able to just catch up, talk about our upcoming wedding. Evan and Cy will be groomsmen in that wedding, so shout out to you guys. It was a very exciting news that I was able to ask them to be. So Mondays Down South will be traveling to Florida in May. We're really looking forward to it. But aside from all of this romance topic, back to football. You guys had a baseball segment. I was wisely missing in action for that one. But college football news. Cy, I know that South Carolina finished 14th in the rankings. That eliminates them, but I see you wearing your Gamecock hat. I know you want to give them a shout out. Maybe we'll start with college football, gents, and then we'll naturally gravitate to the NFL. But Cy, I'll give you the floor right now.
Yeah, Zach, that was a great intro. And I'll say, obviously, I don't think we'll ever stop talking about romance because we're romantic about football. And I certainly was romantic about my game. Grateful that we got to spend that time together. Definitely thankful for you guys and for being your groomsmen. Thank you again for the honor. I know I'm sure Ed feels the exact same way. Had a great time, and while all that was going on, the Gamecocks were playing their game against Clemson. Wasn't really paying attention to it in the first half, given the momentous occasion that was going on. But definitely, as the day progressed, I was watching the rest of the game, and we ended up winning on an amazing touchdown by Lenoria Sellers after he converted a 3rd and 16. It's a redshirt freshman quarterback putting the team on his back. It was a beautiful season, one that I think a lot of fans, if you talk to them from South Carolina, would probably tell you that we weren't expecting this. We expected to be decent at best, I think, from a lot of people's eyes. And for us to show out the way that we did, go 9-3, our 3 losses were, very respectable losses against 3 really good teams, 2 of whom might even make the playoffs. We'll get into all that next week in terms of the actual college football playoff bracket. But I just want to take a minute because obviously when that happens, we're not going to be able to talk about South Carolina. But what an amazing season. And it sets up such a great future for us in the context of what Shane has done, showing the world that, hey, we're no longer just Clemson's little brother all the time, which we've been for the last 10 years. I'll actively admit that. We've won 2 out of our last 3 against Clemson, and we finished 9-3, and we had a couple of massive wins in there. And I'm just super excited, man. I'm romantic about my Gamecocks, as I said earlier. And I just want to give Shane Beamer a shout out. I want to give you guys some love for supporting my team throughout the year. I'm bummed we just missed it, but it's going to be a fun playoff bracket. And this is why, even though I was opposed to this change in college football playoff bracket, because I felt that it made it less of that, you have to win every game, turning into more of more teams getting in. This is why I'm actually coming around to it, because it's a beautiful thing. The teams that are all fighting for those last couple of spots, the matchups are going to get. It's going to be really exciting. So I'm going to leave it at that. Go Gamecocks. And yeah, I'm just proud.
Yeah, the best part of the bracket format is going to be the on-campus games. That's going to be awesome to have a college football playoff on the actual campus. I wanted one on the Smurf turf, but my biggest issue with the format is how the conference champs are just stacked in the top 4 seeds. which like I like in principle, but when the conferences are so lopsided as they are now, thanks to like, you know, the SEC alignment, like SMU and Boise State are both like projected top 4 seeds. But I digress. It's going to be fun. Looking forward to seeing what happens this weekend just with the conference championships. Although I don't think there's a ton of drama in terms of who else can get in outside of maybe like the group of 5. Mountain West championship with UNLV and Boise State. But
yeah, I want Zach to comment on this, but I will say one quick thing before he goes. I'm going to be so mad if we beat Clemson, gave them 4 losses, and they managed to win the ACC championship game and then make the college playoffs. I am going to be so angry if that happens. I'll just leave it at that. Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, what's the situation with that? So Miami's at 12 right now, so they're barely in at this point. They're clearly not one of the best teams in the nation. They probably shouldn't even be competing in the college football playoffs at large. I mean, Virginia Tech almost took them down and in Miami, and that, you know, tells you enough. They also blew a massive lead against Syracuse, and that was embarrassing enough. But with them not even competing in the ACC championship that happens in Charlotte on Saturday, if Clemson wins, does Miami get knocked out? Like, would Clemson replace Miami, or would both of those ACC teams get in because of ACC privilege?
I think they're already out. They're probably they're 12, but since who would it be? Arizona State or whoever wins that conference is like further in the rankings, But they have an auto bid. So Miami's already out of the pool. They are top 12, I guess, maybe. I haven't seen the exact rankings. Yeah,
Arizona State's 15, so
but they have an auto bid.
They can win their conference championship.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
there's Boise State's in the top 12 to begin with. Whoever wins the Mountain West title game, I believe, will be the G5 auto bid. Gotcha. And then whoever wins Iowa State and Arizona State will be an auto bid. And then whoever wins Clemson and SMU will be an auto bid. So those are the only 3, I think, interesting decisions. And then everything else should be chalk.
Yeah, we're going to have to rework this system a little bit as the years go along if things like this happen. And I'm not trying to be a hater because obviously you guys know I tend to roast the Big 12 and the ACC on here. And there's no perfect system. It's not like you can just completely eliminate conference champions. But the notion that Clemson might make it as a 4-loss team if they beat Boise State in the ACC championship after it was ridiculous. A very down year for ACC. Like, let's just be honest here. Even compared to regular standards, it seems like UNC, Virginia Tech, like a couple other squads you would expect to perform better did not show up. Florida State, they didn't show up. And now Clemson might get in with 4 losses. Like, I certainly hope they don't.
It's only 3. They're 9-3.
Is that the third?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But still.
But whose fault is this, Si? Like, I get it, but like, whose fault is that these kinds of teams are getting in? It's the SEC for trying to combine all their money and all their power to one conference. So that's the problem, So they have no one to blame with themselves.
I'm 100% with you. I blame the SEC for this. I never wanted the expansion. I was perfectly content with what we had. It messed with all our schedules, right? Because now we play these random schedules. It gave us an even, not that I'm complaining, but it gave us an even bigger strength, like more difficult strength to schedule already. So it's not like we're benefiting off this. I'm with you. I agree. I think something needs to change though, because that can't happen, right? Like, especially imagine if they were a 4-loss team and made it. That would have been absolutely terrible. They beat nobody. Like Clemson beat nobody all year. Absolutely no one. They lost to everyone that was mildly decent.
The perfect situation is basically what they had it with the conferences, where you had the 5 major power conferences set up by, based more or less regionally. You had the regional rivalries. Everyone kind of, from a travel perspective, was in their own pocket. And then there's 5 auto bids for the conference champions. But at that point, all the conferences are more well aligned. You give one group of 5 a spot, and then you have like 6, or if you want to go to 16 or whatever, of the top at larges, then it'd be perfect. But, here we are.
It's a wild one. It really is.
Well, speaking of the expansion teams, one good thing that came out of it, I should say, is a rivalry game that I missed, and that's Texas versus Texas A&M. Now, what I found hilarious is that for a school that has culty vibes like Texas A&M, where they have a student section, or like the night before the game or 2 nights, they have this midnight yell where they all get together and cheer as loud as they can. Oh, that's so cute. Oh, that's great. And then they have this incredible grand entrance to Kanye West Power. Really cool capturing it on TV. But my favorite comment was from Texas fans saying, wait, well, where's the outro? I want to see the outro. The intro is great, but what does the outro look like? then it's all these Texas A&M fans just sitting there in disbelief that their offense put up 0 points, and the only points that they got on the board was because of a defensive touchdown that, Quinn and company will most likely not make that mistake again. So Texas advances. They're a very dangerous team, and I want to say, I have a prompt actually on this, but I have a prompt that we'll circle back to it. Do you guys have any thoughts on Texas A&M?
I do. So A&M, obviously, both defenses played great. Even A&M's defense, even in a loss, played really well. The part that I couldn't get over was so this isn't me like trying to knock Texas, which I've done for the better part of a decade. They've clearly proven their worth the last 2 years and making the college playoffs both years. They entered the SEC at a perfect time to not get scrutinized, though, because if they'd entered a few years prior, they'd probably be like a 5 to 6 loss team, and I could have roasted them a lot more, but I can't. They actually didn't look that good to me, though. Their defense looked very good, but you have to keep in mind they had 17 points going into halftime, right? They were up, I think, 17-0. And if I remember correctly, they didn't score another point the entire rest of the way until I guess the very end, which makes me like not afraid of them. And if you look at Texas's wins, A&M is arguably their biggest win. And to be fair, like that's arguably our biggest win, right? You get what I'm saying? Like they haven't beaten anyone. Like nobody that they've beaten has had any sort of like their strength of schedule. If they lost this game, would have looked really bad. They would have been only a 2-loss team, one to Georgia, one to A&M, but they would have beaten nobody, right? So I'm actually not that I wasn't that impressed with the win. Now, do I think they can win it all? Yeah, of course. Their team is loaded. It's super talented. Like I don't dispute that. Ewers looked good. He made some beautiful passes, but I'm not that blown away with Texas personally. I'm just not. It's a weird field. I'm actually not really that blown away by anybody. Like I don't think that there's anyone that I'm definitively like this team is the favorite that's going to go win it all. Which is it's crazy because normally I always feel like there's one.
Yeah, I feel like Texas is catching too much hate in that regard because, their strength of schedule isn't amazing. They lost their one, big time game with Georgia, but, they haven't had any slip ups, whereas pretty much every other team in the country, with the exception of Oregon, and arguably South Carolina, right? They haven't lost to any unranked teams, have lost to a bad team. I mean, look at Ohio State. They lost to friggin' Michigan this weekend, obviously a rivalry game, but they've blown out a lot of these bad teams as well, with the exception of the Vanderbilt game. So
they also got blown out by Georgia. That's why it's not a good look, right? Like the only
that's one game.
Team that they played blew them out. I don't know, but that's what I'm saying.
I think they're getting faded a bit unnecessarily. More so to your point, I guess, because there isn't one dominant team this year. So I think it's gonna be interesting for sure.
Well, it's funny that the Georgia almost lost as well to Georgia Tech. In Athens, they were losing 20-6, and then with 5 minutes left, that game ended up being 44-42 in Georgia's favor. But more interestingly was Carson Beck's quote today, which I think the media is just jumping all over him. But man, that is a terrible way to describe watching film. You should look forward to it because that's gonna be how you grow ultimately. That's like you being in school and saying, "Oh, I'm not a homework guy." It's like, okay, well, ultimately, homework's going to make you a better person. I don't like homework either, but I'm not going to sit there and harp on it. I don't know. I just find it hilarious how this quarterback if he wants to get draft stock, he should probably talk about film in a different degree. But I also understand what he was trying to say, and I think the media is trying to get him, or they're using it as clickbait. But here's my prompt. You guys ready for this? Should flag planting be banned? What are your thoughts on flag planting? Because it is rivalry week, and there were a ton of fights, so much that Michigan and Ohio State players were pepper sprayed by police. And it was all because of the flag planting. So, Zai, Evan, what are your thoughts?
You want me to go first, though?
Sure.
I think there's a way to do it, which is badass, like how Baker did it back in the day, right? I think that's what everyone's been trying to replicate. And in reality, it just looked dumb. The teams, first of all, flag planting when you're not even that good of a team is hilarious to me. But I guess that's your statement of this is the only game we've won all year that matters. So for that reason, we're going to go try to put our flag in the middle of the field. It's kind of embarrassing. And to a certain extent, the way some of those teams approached it and the reactions to it was super classless. You know what I mean? I feel like the teams that act like you've been there before is kind of the mentality I'm taking. And I a couple of teams, I'm not going to, continue to counter praises here, but you didn't see us. You didn't see the teams that were like used to these rivalry games that like are used to like respecting each other, even if we hate each other doing it. And I'm like, like act like you've been there before. It's I don't know. I think it's kind of embarrassing. It's like a bad look. Like it makes you look like a bunch of like immature people that you're all like fighting on the middle of a field over a flag. Like I don't know. That's the way I look at it.
The flag planting this weekend was awesome. It should definitely not be banned. This is one of the best college football days in a long time. Just with everyone fighting, all the drama. It was absolutely outstanding. The pepper spray situation was insane. Those were, I guarantee, those were just angry Ohio State fan cops that like took it way too far, because that fight wasn't even that dramatic. Like someone was talking about it, I wasn't watching live, and then I turned to it and watched the replay. I was like, they're barely even fighting. I mean, some guys were trying to, but the flag planting is awesome. My favorite thing is when they try to do it on turf, like Michigan, and it's like it can't stick in the ground. Like, what are we doing here? Mm-hmm. I mean, like Baker did back in the day. But it's so good. Saturday was awesome with all these rivalry games and the flag planting. It was truly fantastic. I agree with Cy, though. It was more so the teams that like didn't have anything to lose, because like Texas kind of started to do it, and then Sark was like we can't have guys like getting to fights, getting hurt, getting suspended. Like we're trying to go to the national championship, and we're playing in the SEC championship next week. So it was the teams with nothing to lose that were really getting after.
What is NC State doing, bro? Like. Was watching
so good.
State versus North Carolina in a 6-5 versus 5-6 matchup. They're flag planting. Like, I don't think it should be banned, but I think it's embarrassing if you're flag planting. Like, Michigan makes sense. You flag planted against the number 2 overall team in the nation and you beat them. Like, okay, I get it. Like, you guys hate each other. NC State, North Carolina, nobody gives a shit about your schools, man. Like, why do you flag? I don't know. Zach, go ahead.
That was shout out Badass.
Yeah, shout out.
All right, I'll give a quick Hokies plug. Talk about 2 5-6 teams, or just downright atrocious ACC teams competing for the Stuffings Bowl, I guess you could say.
Oh no!
This was the first time I saw the Virginia Tech offense that I had hoped and dreamed of come together. Yes, I know we were playing at UVA. But Pop Watson. Get ready to hear that name, because he played incredible. Yes, he was our 3rd string quarterback. I don't know where he came from, but also I think this is a perfect opportunity for him not to transfer away from Virginia Tech, for him to stay there, for him to get some NIL money, because he played his tail off, and I hope he's the starter next year. Although he is 5'11", he gives me Kyler Murray vibes. He's fast. He can throw the ball. I would encourage you guys to watch some of the highlights, but we dropped like a 40 burger on UVA. But it's hilarious because in that game, there was still like massive shit talking. And it's like, for what? I mean, I guess like this is for bowl eligibility, and UVA and Tech don't like each other. But like, guys, let's stop acting like celebrities over here. This is just a football game. This doesn't matter. Like, I'm really glad we won and we're bowl eligible for another year, but we're going to play like, UL Lafayette in the bowl, and they're like 7-5 in whatever division they're in. So I wouldn't mind a JMU bowl, team. Actually. JMU and Tech would be very interesting.
They can't do that because we're on the schedule in 2 years, and to like ruin what would be an awesome game after the last time we played. They can't do that.
That's true.
I hope they.
I was hoping this year we'd be playing each other, thinking that we'd.
Yeah, that would be fun.
But that's not happening, because we're going to be like right outside the college playoffs. But the part that gets me is I remember at the beginning of the year, all the Hokie fans were like, there's this like a badass boxer looking guy who was going to be their quarterback of the future. And now Zach's talking about a guy named Pop Warner. It's his 3rd string. Look out for it next year. It's just so funny to me. I got Pop. I'll keep an eye out. I got you, Zach.
That's my favorite rivalry, because for whatever reason, it always is 2 5-6 teams that are fighting for one spot of bowl eligibility every year. It's always the same. Like, no matter how much preseason hype, it always comes down to Tech and UVA fighting for a bowl spot at the end. I will say I'm a little disappointed. I didn't recommend betting on that from an MDS perspective, because it was only like -4, and like, Tech has been disappointing this year, but they are so much better. And I was expecting them to kill them, and they did. So good luck in the bowl.
Yeah, but in terms of the flag planting, though, I was listening to and then we can move on to the NFL here, because I know we're like 15, 20 minutes in, but players were saying, hey, if you had a problem with it, you had 60 minutes to fight. We had 60 minutes to fight and compete, and now you're going to take all this unreleased anger because you lost. and we flag planted on your field, and you're going to be mad about it, you had 60 minutes to be mad about it. I think that is such a frail explanation for the act of flag planting. You are literally going into their house and you're saying, I am conquering this area. Of course, it's going to raise bad blood. These players should know better. I am not for flag planting, but boy, did it like leave the room for much entertainment, because I agree with Evan. I think this is one of the most fun weeks of college football. So you know what? I'm just going to let the players do whatever they want. If they want a flag plant, do it. I'm here for the entertainment and the post-game shenanigans. But I do not want to hear any player try to play the harp like they're super innocent and say, oh, they had 60 minutes to fight. You have to let us do our things, as you solemnly walk back to the locker room. I'm sorry, if you're an Ohio State player, you're not going to let a Michigan player just freaking go straight to the middle of the O and plug the gap. So they should have known better. I totally understand the retribution response from the losing teams.
It also like degrades it when like every I was going to cuss, but every other team does it, right? Like this is like when you storm the field after you beat a team that like you're supposed to beat, or you're like Clemson, who storms every week. Clemson's just catching a bunch of strays for me this week, but I'm gonna talk my smack because we beat them in their house. If you do things like that, it no longer feels badass. It just looks like a joke. Like obviously we enjoyed it as like fans from the outside looking in, but it's just embarrassing. Like because the reality is it's like Michigan flag planting Ohio State. I get it. You beat the team that was second. But what are you saying to us? It means you won a national championship last year, and your best moment of the year was a game that meant nothing outside of beating a rival. Like that's embarrassing when you think about the context of it. You're planting your flag like you accomplished something. Congratulations, you beat an Ohio State team that's lost 2 games. But what have you really done? Like that's
their OC just got fired too today.
Yeah,
Michigan's.
That's what I'm saying. I just feel like I don't, which is a bummer, right? Like I don't know. I don't know. I'm not like I'm so here for it if you do it in a badass way. Like when Baker did it, it was badass. Like his persona is that. But if you're just doing it to do it, it's like it is what it is. It's not impressive to me.
That's why rivalries are beautiful, though. It's like no matter what happened the rest of the year, like that game, if you beat your rival, it's kind of I want to say all forgiven, but it's that's just how much it means. So I'm here. Honestly, I just don't think it's that deep. Like the players aren't like trying to they're just trying to troll. Like they're expecting the other team to fight them. Like it's just not like that serious of a move. It's just like they're just trying to start something, and it's a blast. Every 15 minutes on Twitter, I was like, oh, we got another. Let's go.
It was wild. It was hilarious.
So good.
I will say that.
Yeah.
Should we jump to the league, the professionals?
Yes.
Anything from Thursday? I mean, Matt Eberflus with another disaster class. Just he did get fired several days ago. I think wasn't it Black Friday? Maybe it was like hope you had a nice Thanksgiving. Now you're looking for a job. He was horrible this year. Now the Bears are going to have to retread and basically do what they should have done this last offseason and look at some of the same candidates: Ben Johnson, Cliff Kingsbury, which would be hilarious if they chose not to hire him in the offseason. Seems like they might be looking at him. And Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame, too, is the name that they are maybe looking at, which would be quite interesting. But, I don't have a ton from Thanksgiving Day, unless you guys...
Yeah, I'll say this, though. Like, the Bears ended up losing that game, and obviously the first half did not look good. But I saw the score at the end of the first half, and I thought the game was over. And then Caleb put on a masterclass in the second half. I mean, what he did in the second half was, so damn impressive against the best team in the NFL. And he did everything he could to put them in position to win. And obviously there was that weird botch play. So I actually think the Bears have, obviously their season, they're not going to go win, but Keenan's look better. DJ Moore's look better. Rome Odunze's look better. So that team offensively in the last couple of weeks, after admittedly what Evan has been calling for, which is a change of the coaching, has looked significantly better in terms of their ability to compete and actually throw the football. So this gives me I guess what I'm saying about it is long term, it gives me even more belief that Caleb's going to turn into something, because he looked really good the last couple of weeks. He's been progressively better every week.
Yeah, and the only other thing I'll pick on, the Green Bay night game, I think the secret to the Green Bay success is not just Jordan Love, it's Josh Jacobs. I mean, this dude is a freak of nature. He's had an incredible season. And I think that Josh Jacobs, you could label him a top 5 to 7 running back in the league right now. I think he clears what's the kid's name out of Seattle. Not
Walker.
Charbonnet. I think he clears Walker. I think he clears Joe Mixon. Even though Joe Mixon's having a great year, I think that he clears guys like Brian and Bijan Robinson. I think Josh Jacobs is that dude. I think he is, and he's the recipe for what's setting up that beautiful play action scheme, offensive scheme in Green Bay. As Green Bay rolls to 9-3, everyone's talking about Minnesota at 10-2. They're knocking on the door of the Detroit Lions. As good as this NFC North division is, I think Green Bay is better than Minnesota, and I think they're only going to get better as I think Minnesota's going to get worse. That's the only thing I wanted to say on the Thursday night game. Shout out Josh Jacobs.
It's a fun conversation, actually, because now you got me thinking. This is a quick little debate here about that. I would say Josh Jacobs, and at first my immediate reaction was no, but actually maybe not, because I might agree with you. Like Josh Jacobs, I think, and Bijan, I would put right next to each other. In whatever order you want to do it, like, because I think there's a conversation with both. I think Breece Hall is right there with them too. Like I'd put all of them right there. I think C-Mac is clearly number one, and I'd put Saquon ahead of any of them this year. I think Saquon has been terrific. Derrick Henry's older, but he's in that conversation, so that's a fun debate. But I think I agree with you, especially this year. It's really hard to say Josh Jacobs is not a top 5 running back, and he's versatile. He's never had he had his first receiving touchdown of the year this year, but he is a great receiving back, and people don't give him enough credit for that too, on top of running. So I'm with you. That's a good take, Zach. I'd
probably follow the stats and maybe have him at 3. C-Mac being injured, obviously, unfortunately, out for the year now, takes him off the list at the present moment. We'll see how he comes back from that injury. But I think Saquon 1, and then Derrick Henry 2. I think Josh Jacobs has a rightful argument to 3. And I had someone in mind that is kind of on that Josh Jacobs level, but I'm forgetting who it was, just as as a pure running back, I would say.
Yeah. If we don't have anything else on the running back front, I do want to quickly advocate for Eberflus getting a DC job immediately, though, because I truly believe he's a great defensive mind, and not all coordinators turn into great head coaches. But I promise, whichever team picks him up as a defensive coordinator is going to be very, very happy. Similar to some of the other head coaches that went back to coordinating, I think he's a really good defensive mind.
It's interesting because Jalen Johnson was the first guy that critiqued him openly, publicly in the locker room following the loss. So it looks like his defensive players have turned on him.
Whatever. I've seen him coach my defense for years, and he was amazing. So I hope he gets an opportunity somewhere else.
Speaking of the night game, I do need to bury the Dolphins. All right, this whole cold weather, like, it was partially almost a joke by a lot of people, I think, saying like, "Oh, the Dolphins can't play in the cold. They're from Miami." It's like, no, this team truly cannot play in the cold. Tua has never won a football game below 40 degrees. That game in Green Bay wasn't even that cold relative to how cold it's going to get in the Northeast and out in the Midwest as you get to playoff time, like that Chiefs game last year. They had like an unbelievable amount of missed tackles. Tua didn't, I mean, he looked okay. Tua didn't look that horrible, but like they're honestly just a joke and one of the softest teams in the NFL. And this is why they're never going to amount to anything with this core. Like the fact that they're blaming the weather in what was like, it was like almost around freezing. Like it was like 30 degrees or something. Like, I mean, come on, that is an absolute joke, and you're never going to be successful unless you get some tougher players. It honestly was a pathetic performance by Miami.
Think about who they're going to have to play if they make the playoffs as a wild card. They're going to have to play Kansas City, Buffalo. I mean, these are teams like Buffalo's snowing the whole time.
It's absolutely laughable that Miami thinks that they could be anything of note and that they can't go and play in 30 degrees with not that much wind and no precipitation. Like, look at Buffalo.
That is a crazy stat that they like Tua's never won a game with under 40 degrees. That is actually a crazy stat.
And he's only won one below like 55, like, which isn't like, that's like perfect football weather. They're just an absolute joke. Honestly, the whole organization for this, I just can't. Anyways, move to Sunday. All right, that's Friday. The Chiefs almost lost on Friday. Yeah, they got lucky again.
Hey man, they found a way to win, per usual.
Worst 11-1 team in NFL history, and our bet is not too far off.
I mean, they've lost one game since you made it, so I think I'm doing pretty well at the moment.
No, we made this bet when they were 8-1. Oh shoot, hang on. When they were 9-0, so they're 2-1. They're 2-1. I admittedly haven't seen the rest of their schedule.
They couldn't have lost more than one game because they've only lost one game all year. So I can't be wrong about that.
You can't dispute the level of luck they have, though. Like,
was it a push? Was it a push at 2-2? Like, or if they go 2-2 or
Don't get me
3-3
wrong,
for the
I
rest
don't
of the year?
dispute that, but I will say this though: I will 100% defend Mahomes for this weekend. It looked like last year where like everyone forgot how to catch a football midway. The DeAndre drop and the drop in the end zone, I can't remember who it was. That was ridiculous. They easily had that game won if they catch the football, but it looks like she looks very similar to the second half of last year, where it's a game that they easily should win. They make it closer than they should, but weirdly this year they're converting those, whereas last year they didn't. So I don't know why. I don't know how. It's just happening.
Yeah, the Raiders are interesting. I saw something on the Chive. Shout out the Chive. Hilarious, hilarious find here. Jacob Beck and Brian Jones have always been on big Chive guys, but there was an image that showed two beautiful yellow Lamborghinis parked in a trailer home, and that's exactly what the Raiders are. Brock Bowers, Max Crosby, and then the rest of the roster is a dumpster fire. Now, speaking of defenses that are dumpster fires, the Cincinnati Bengals lost again, and this is a team. Here's a hilarious stat. The Cincinnati Bengals have scored 99 points in 3 weeks. They've lost all of those games. They've scored 100 points in 3 games, and they've lost every one of them. I mean, it's crazy. Even Joe Burrow is putting his team on blast, like, subtweeting or essentially subliminal messages in his post-game press conferences that it's like people are playing for roster spots.
It's legitimately insane what's happening there. Like Joe Burrow's having a historic like MVP caliber season. They just keep losing. I don't have it much, but I do want to shout out the Steelers a little bit. Like they're proving that they can win in a variety of ways. Like the defense actually had a really bad game. Obviously, no one can stop the Bengals, but and then Russell Wilson. I mean, it's an awful defense. Don't get me wrong, but he lit them up. George Pickens had a couple small crash out moments, but always entertaining. But he's turning into an elite NFL wide receiver and. So shout out the Steelers proving they can win in more ways than just 17-10 rock fight.
Yeah, I'm a big Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp guy. I love those guys. I don't always agree with their takes, but they made an absurd take this week. I don't know if you guys saw the clip, but Dan Orlovsky was losing his mind because they were trying to blame Joe Burrow for not playing well enough to win. And I was like, are you guys out of your mind right now? Like, this man has done everything you could humanly possibly do to try to win football games the last 5 weeks. Jamar Chase has done everything he can do. T. Higgins, when he's healthy, even Chase Brown, who has come in and done a great job as the backup to Zach Moss. Like, what? I've never seen a defense be this incredibly awful relative to how good an offense is. Like, imagine if they even had a borderline decent defense. Like, if I was any AFC, I would be terrified to play them. But I mean, you could just pretty much put up 50 on them on any given week. It's just crazy. That's crazy.
I want to see how good you guys think George Pickens is, because I called him a preemptive superstar a couple football seasons ago. If you had the chance, like Washington, or not, Washington's a bad example. If you're the Carolina Panthers GM and you have a chance of bringing George Pickens or T. Higgins over and paying them a long-term deal, like a big deal, to be their star number one, who would you pick?
I think that's kind of easy. I think that's almost too easy. I think George Pickens has been the one on that team and has proven that he can be a one. T. Higgins has always been a two, so I'd definitely go George Pickens. And Pickens is younger. I'd ask the question. Let's bring it back to what you asked, what you said I think it was last year. Do you like George Pickens or Garrett Wilson?
Garrett Wilson.
Oh, you changed
Stick to your guns, Zach.
No, I'm changing it. Garrett Wilson's DK Metcalf didn't get picked until the 3rd round because people thought he ran 2 or 3 routes, right? And although that never came into fruition, I still understand what NFL scouts were thinking about, because DK Metcalf is a certain type of role in that environment in Seattle, right? That's replicated with the Pittsburgh Steelers and with George Pickens. George Pickens he can be versatile, but they run him. Stylistically, I see him in a specific role with every team, whereas Garrett Wilson, you can truly line him up everywhere, and I think that's the difference that I have. I mean, did you see how open Garrett Wilson got against Seattle when Aaron Rodgers overthrew him, and then the very next play he threw a pick six? I don't even know if we want to talk about the Jets, but I just think that Garrett Wilson, I would probably lean his direction, so therefore I am switching my pickup, yeah.
I'll say this. I'll let Evan go, and I'm just going to go super quick. I think your take, I still would take Garrett Wilson, but since you've made your take, Pickens is inched closer and closer for me. I think Garrett Wilson is a more complete receiver. So if I'm building a team around him, I would probably take him. But Pickens is definitely the more, definitely, but he's a very explosive receiver. So I could definitely see why some people might like that. So if you have any takes on that.
Yeah, it's disappointing to see you flip-flop here, Zach, because that was such a terrific take that at the time seemed so absurd. So disappointing. I might go Pickens. Partially, I'm just so endeared by his crash outs. Like, his ridiculous antics have, like, become a positive for his brand, just because it's, like, so hilarious and so, kind of every week something happens. And it's never anything too dramatic, which is why I think you could look past it. It's just, like, I don't know, he starts scrapping with someone or gets a silly penalty. So I'm pro George Pickens right now, and I think he's a stud. Garrett Wilson, for me, has been really disappointing. He's, like, starting to run out of real estate to prove to me that he's a truly elite receiver, which, I think still he has a skill set to be, but I don't know. He's running out of excuses for me, and he's been okay. He's been good through his first, what is this, year 3, 3 or 4, whatever it is. But he's been disappointing for me.
I personally think
partially because I have high expectations, but
that might be why. I personally think he's been as good as he can be given the circumstances. We thought Aaron Rodgers was going to go over there and be like great, and he just hasn't been. Like, I mean, Zach just alluded to it. Like, he's missing him on open balls, like. And now that Devontae's over there, they're just like they're not even trying at this point, right? Like, but I saw him have some elite games and run, and when he route runs and you see those hands, like I can't help but think he's elite. Like it's just weird circumstance. Yeah.
He's Terry McLaurin, man. Like I think George Pickens is like an AJ Green, but those players have their ceilings. We're recognizing with Terry McLaurin there is no ceiling. And I feel like Garrett Wilson's that type of player. He's not just a possession receiver. He can be a deep ball threat. He's always open, man. He's always open. George Pickens is too busy crashing out on someone to get open.
So good. I love George Pickens. That's actually a good comp. Like a younger Terry McLaurin. I like that comp. Zach, most underrated receiver in the league. Dare I mention?
I don't want to rile Evan up, but if you told me if I could have Garrett Wilson or Terry McLaurin, I'm taking Garrett Wilson. Just so
there's 5 years in age apart.
No, I'm just saying in terms of like if you could profile like even at the same stage of their careers, I just think Garrett Wilson's ceiling is higher, and that's no offense to Terry. He's
more talented, but Terry is a million times more consistent. That's what I'm saying about Garrett Wilson. Like, there's a reason Aaron Rodgers wanted Devontae Adams there is because he wasn't driving with Garrett Wilson, and I mean Aaron is a particular kind of guy, but he knows ball.
At this point, like, can we trust anything that Aaron wants this year or in the last season? Are we really going to be like, oh yeah, Aaron Rodgers' judgment has been great? Like, I mean, come on, man! Like, this guy's been stuck with crap this whole time.
Yeah, but
to be fair, I was wrong. I thought the Packers with Rodgers would be way better, and then the more I watch them, the more I'm like, what are they doing? Like, it makes no sense to me.
Well, but it's more for me like the relationship. Like, sure, Aaron is a shell of himself. He's not playing well at all, but you can tell by how adamantly he wanted Adams there. You can tell by some of the things he said in press conferences about Garrett Wilson that the relationship just wasn't gelling to that level. And that has nothing to do with Aaron's ability on the field. It's more, again, we're not in practice. Like, we don't see the work ethic of him. I don't know what it is, but like something is missing there that I think Aaron has pointed out. And yeah, Aaron's obviously playing terrible. So it's, unfair to maybe look at the stats, but that's what I'm looking at is like, there's just something missing there for me. And, I don't know. He's going to have to.
Hey, it's year 3 and I think he's been pretty solid up until now. And I think he has more steps to take. So we'll see. I mean, we won't know for another couple of years, I think, in terms of the comparison. When we're comparing the guys ahead.
But by year 3, like, most guys break out in year 2. Sometimes it's year 3.
Well, I think
if he's going to take till year 4, like.
I think his circumstances have not been as good as those guys. I mean, who'd you compare him to? Justin Jefferson, who had Kirk Cousins, or Jamar Chase, who had Joe Burrow, or what other young guys you want to compare him to? Like, I think in terms of the guys that he got compared to coming in, his circumstances have been way worse. I think that's a pretty fair argument.
So man. It's running out of excuses.
Well, I would say that if he hasn't been good at all, but he has been perfectly good. I think he has the potential to be elite. But anyway, we'll see. He's still got a little bit of time.
That's true of Sauce Gardner too. He had 2 elite seasons and he's been disappointing this year too. So I'm calling out all the Jet stars really. He actually has shown his elite ceiling. And then this year he's been terrible. So, maybe it's just a culture thing that's wearing him down, but all the Jet stars need to step up their game if the Jets want to be successful here as a franchise. Obviously they're not this year, but
they need a culture change for sure.
Yeah.
Quick mention of the AFC South, I think would be a quick way to knock out 2 games at the same time. I'll start with the Texans. I wanted to roast them last week, but we didn't have a podcast, so I didn't get to. But bro, they're a joke. Like they're an absolute joke. Like I'm not even gonna like try to sugarcoat this. They don't. I have no idea what they're doing. They lost to the Titans. They haven't been. I don't think they've played well in like 5 weeks. The only good win they had against was a second string Cowboys, who I don't know somehow beat Evans the Commanders, which we didn't even really get to talk about that much. And then now they go out against Jacksonville. They knock out Trevor Lawrence, which was like really a bummer to see because T-Law just got back. Al Shazier apologized, and I'm not gonna keep faulting him for it. He went out there and apologized. And he clearly realized what he did was wrong, and hopefully he grows from that. But he's been suspended 3 games as a result, and they still almost blow the game to Mac Jones and the Jaguars. Like I have nothing that I can hang my hat on about the Texans right now. And like they're very lucky that my Colts have not been that great. They're lucky that the division overall is bad because otherwise they should not be a playoff team in my opinion. Like they just don't look good. CJ has not been great. They got Nico back, so I don't know where the excuses are. But I think I just want to roast them real quick because I just don't get what they're doing. They have no identity.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how the moment Trevor Lawrence got hit and is completely unconscious on the ground, I respect the fact that Jacksonville Jaguars players retaliated, but they retaliated in a fashion where no one was checking on Trevor Lawrence. The whole teams, all the sidelines were out fighting each other, and he's just laying there in the middle of the field. So, in all seriousness, I'm glad that he's okay. I was pretty shocked by the response, and I'm glad that Al-Ashir apologized. I didn't realize that, Sai. But overall, I think the Texans are going to be okay. I think they have been they've slipped into a lull, but ultimately, CJ Stroud just needs to rely on the fact that he is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. Futuristically speaking, I think they're going to be okay. They're going to host a playoff game in the Dome, and I think that they could win that. I really do. I think that they could win that, especially in an AFC that's going to feature a 5, 6, and 7. One of those teams might have a losing record. Now, and I do think that the Texans are better than the Denver Broncos. If the Broncos are the 5th seed, I think that the Texans beat them 8 to 9 times out of 10. Especially what I saw last night with the Broncos, despite the fact they put up 30-something point or 40 points, I still just do not see them being consistently a good football team.
Well, Evan, I'll let you comment too, but on Zach's point real quick though, what is that saying though? Because we came into this year saying the Texans are this elite team that's going to go give the Chiefs a run for their money based off of CJ Stroud's rookie year and them adding all these guys and adding Daniel Hunter, and obviously Diggs got hurt. We were talking about them being the potential 2 seed and usurping the Chiefs this year. And we're having a conversation right now about how, you think they might be better than the Denver Broncos. Like what does that really say? Like it says that they're not anywhere close to what people predicted. And this isn't me saying anything about you, Zach, because you never came into the year acting like your Texans were going to be your Super Bowl champions. This is me talking about the media and Texans fans and people in general who obviously have alluded to the Texans being this elite team. And I'm not even trying to be biased because as a Colts fan, I've always been a fan of CJ Stroud. I was the one defending him last year, but he hasn't taken a step up. If anything, he's taken a step back. And maybe it's a sophomore slump, but also we got to keep in mind if they end up being that 4 seed in the AFC playoffs, I think we're forgetting the AFC playoffs, although maybe they're not as deep as the NFC. The 3 teams that are in, if you take the Broncos out, they might play the Chargers, who have looked very good, or they might play the Ravens at home, which I'm not picking the Texans over the Ravens. Like that's all I'm saying. So I'm not like nothing about them they've come close to their ceiling. Go ahead, E.
No, I think you guys are spot on. They've been horrible pretty much all year with the exception of maybe the first couple games. I think it shows like how much of an impact a bad offensive line can have on an offensive team, a quarterback, because I mean, Stroud's not playing well this year, which is, it can't be fully attributed to the line, but when you got Nico Collins, Joe Mixon's having an unbelievable year. Yes. So I would like to think that's the issue because the defense has still largely been good. So I still think they can turn around, they can start to block, but they've been terrible. I think, I think them and the Broncos are probably comparable for me. So I would say if they played 10 times, it'd be maybe 6-4 Houston, maybe 5-5. That's not saying much because I think the Broncos are pretty, they're not a bad team. They're maybe slightly above average, but I still think they can turn it around, but yeah, I wouldn't be taking them over the Chargers or Ravens, although I don't think the Ravens are too good either right now, despite their talent. So
another AFC South note going right off that, Evan, I was cracking up when you texted me the other day. Zach, I don't know if you saw this, but Evan texted me the Colts in all caps because AR had like a game-winning drive, which by the way, he got screwed on that drive multiple times and still found a way to like scored a touchdown and converted 2-point conversion. A.D. Mitchell, he throws him a perfect deep ball, he drops it, and then he throws Granson a perfect ball across the middle into his hands, and he drops it. So these are the things that I think sometimes people overlook. Like, you got to help your young guy out, but ultimately he leads the drive, he gets there, and then he runs through the defensive line to score the 2-point conversion like a dog. And there's like 30 seconds left, and I didn't even think they would think to kick it. I thought they were going to throw a Hail Mary, and they bring out Sly for like a 68-yard field goal, and this man misses it by like 2 yards. And I'm sitting here like I'm watching the game with Monhouse and Nikki, and I'm like, bro, please don't make this. Like, this would be the most deflating way for your playoff hopes to just like. I'm not sitting here expecting us to make the playoffs, but if you win this game, you're still in the hunt. I was like, imagine we don't make the playoffs because the Patriots beat us with a 68-yard field goal at home. I think with their like backup kicker or something. It was crazy, but I just thought that was hilarious.
Go Hokies.
I have an interesting story about Joey Sly. There was a McComas is like the Strom at Virginia Tech. It's the big weight room. And I was doing the bench press one time, and I had 45s on either side. All right, I was feeling pretty good. Yeah. I mean, I've never increased past that, but hey, for what it's worth, I can rep a couple of those. Sit up and like to take. I finished my three reps of 10, or 3 sets of 10, I should say, and I'm sliding the weights off to go to the next machine, and Joey Sly comes up and he goes, "Hey, buddy, you can leave those on, no worries." I immediately recognized that as a kicker. I was like, oh, his legs, his lower body is like, probably huge, but like, what about it? Like, why? He's not going to be benching 200 pounds. Like, there's no way. This dude throws 3 to 4 plates, I can't remember, on each side and just starts casually repping it, no spotter or anything. And I'm not sure if you guys saw in the interview, he was explaining why he didn't hit the 68-yarder. Like, it was common practice for him to hit it. Like, I don't know if that was excusatory or just like good press is bad press, whatever the reason of him explaining why I didn't kick nearly a 70-yard field goal through the uprights. But he's always been a stud. The problem is he's always had accuracy issues, and I guess he fixed that in the NFL, although the Commanders did release him. But speaking of the Commanders, Ev, I want you to give your take. You guys are finally back on track. Got a much-needed win and did it in glorious fashion against Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans. How does it feel to be back in the win club, and what does that mean for the playoffs here?
Yeah, it feels good. This is what I thought they would look like against Dallas. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So, a week later than I was hoping. But yeah, I thought, they looked great. I thought they made some nice adjustments on offense with Cliff, and Jaden looks fully healthy. Using his legs, looks amazing. Terry McLaurin, again, I mentioned earlier, most underrated receiver in the league, 3rd in the league in receiving yards behind Jefferson and Chase. So defense has been really good overall. Marshawn Lattimore comes back after the bye. So all a good report. Schedule is fairly easy, so they should be in good shape to hold that wild card if they play more like they did against, the Titans suck. They were a disaster. But so back on track, much needed bye week. Obviously, like a week 14 bye week is crazy to me. In this league, so that's huge. Yeah, good game. Nice to get a win.
I wanted to talk about the Commanders because we didn't get to talk about them after after last week as much. After the back-to-back weeks and whatnot. I think obviously they needed this win and they won in a dominant fashion, which is what they needed after what's gone down. But if you really think about it, like the Bears game, no matter what happens for the rest of the season, this season is a success. Like, Jaden Daniels has looked amazing. Their future is bright. There's absolutely no denying that. But obviously, like 4 or 5 weeks ago, I'm not saying Evan was saying this, but some of us were having the conversation of, oh, are they a threat to go win the NFC Championship? Are they like elite to that level, right? But if you really think about it, since the Bears game, which they won on a Hail Mary where the corner made one of the worst plays I've ever seen. I'm not going to take that away from him. Great play for Jaden to get that 5 yards before and throw a touchdown. Outside of this Titans win, it has not looked very good. I mean, it was essentially a double-digit loss to the Eagles, which is, I mean, the Eagles are a good team, but that was like a prove-it game. Didn't happen. The Steelers game was a weird result. I won't dispute that, but came out of the wire. The Steelers took that, and then the Cowboys one specifically was mind-boggling to me. I mean, so many missed opportunities to win that game. Obviously, bringing Siebert back too quickly was the issue there, but I mean, I don't know what the coaching staff was doing. If you're going to put him on the IR immediately after, like maybe Evan knows more about this. I was a little bit surprised by that. So I guess what I'm really trying to say though is like I think we're seeing a bit of this like over set expectations and then maybe a little bit more regressing to the mean. And then now I'm not really sure what to think of the Commanders the rest of the way. Like, I still think they're the best team, or I still think they're one of the better teams in the NFC, but I think maybe we were a little too quick to like put too much pressure on them, especially with this rookie quarterback who has done about as amazing as a rookie quarterback could do. And it's made me have a little bit of a pause of like we're anointing Cliff Kingsbury as if he is like already like back to being this, and he was earlier in the year, he was proving it, but I'm not fully sold on Cliff yet. Like I'm starting to have my doubts and a little bit of this and that. I know it's weird for me to say this after the Titans game because obviously they dominated that, but the Titans aren't very good, right? I'm looking at the span of the second half that we've seen so far. So I just wanted to throw that out there. And I like Jaden. I like the Commanders. I'm just throwing it out there.
I think they're appropriately slotted now from a seeding standpoint. Like 7, I think if you flip Atlanta and Tampa in the division there, I think then the NFC shakes out like how it should be in terms of the order of the teams. Like I think the Commanders are better than Atlanta. I think Tampa Bay is really good, so I think they are the best team in that division. But like they're not on the level of like Minnesota, Green Bay, like those teams. So I think now, like the Jaden injury, it was less about the injury, but more like losing practice time. And I think for me, it's like the depth of the roster. Which we knew was an issue coming in. Like the starters, you're able to do kind of a quick 1-year rebuild. You make some nice like 1-year veteran deals, but then as the season goes on and guys get hurt, you start to get exposed a little bit. So I think that is probably the biggest thing I'll point to, as opposed to people trying to say that like, the cliff, and all this other stuff. So I think it's more just like the lack of depth. You have a decent starting lineup, but when you lose some guys, it gets a little shakier. So,
yeah.
What I'll say about the Falcons, too, another team that had a lot of hype, just like the Commanders early in the season, and they've started to have some turbulence halfway through, is if you're listening to this podcast at this point, 50 minutes in, I think, and I would strongly advise you to bet on the Atlanta Falcons to win the division. And I'll tell you why. With the Buccaneers barely beating the Carolina Panthers, with their like an arch rival winning and the Falcons losing, that's going to give you great odds from a Falcons winning the division standpoint. But let me talk about the Falcons and why they will win the division this year. They still have the most talented roster. Their defense actually played great last week and held the Chargers to 180 yards, which is diabolical how we lost that game, especially when we came off of a bye and the Chargers were off of a Monday Night Football game. Kirk Cousins lost that game. And if you're a Falcons fan and you've ever watched Kirk Cousins play in his previous teams, Evan knows this very well. You're going to have Kirk Cousins games. Doesn't make it acceptable. But we also don't need to start talking about Michael Penix and throwing him in. All right. It's Kirk's team. So hear me out. Kirk Cousins is going to play great games for the rest of the season. They have a more talented roster. The defense is starting to play better. The Buccaneers are still banged up, even though they got Mike Evans back. Chris Godwin's out for the season, and their defense cannot stop a sack of potatoes. Go with the Falcons. They are going to win the division. This is a perfect opportunity to take that minus 120 or minus 160 bet, whatever it is right now, because Tampa Bay won last week. This is the perfect time to cash in.
I disagree. I'm actually really miserable I didn't take the Bucs when they were like plus 300 because I thought they were the better team throughout. Unfortunately, the second Falcons game, they were incredibly injured. I don't think Mike Evans played in that one, so it was a real long shot for them to get that one, and they blew the first one. So I'm riding the Bucs here. The Panthers are playing really well right now. So obviously, Bryce Young's been terrific. So I don't want to knock them too much for finding a way to win that game. So I'm definitely riding Tampa Bay the rest of the way. I think they're a way better team.
Yeah, I don't really think about either of the teams at the top of the NFC South because they're not doing shit in the playoffs. No offense. Sure, maybe they'll make some noise in one playoff game, but neither of them is going very. I'm not even saying that to be rude. I'm actually hurt because I really thought the Falcons were going to be good. I really, really thought they were going to be good. I actually fully expected Zach to come on here and rip them a new one for not scoring more than 13 points this week and winning because Zach the last couple of weeks has been very critical of his Falcons team. So I was shocked to hear that take, which is why I like it because it's different than what I thought. I actually want to spend more time on my end talking about Bryce Young because, after the benching and all the crap that he was given and everyone in the world ripping him, saying that he's not an NFL quarterback and this and that, he has quietly put together a great stretch of games where, he's not going to blow you away with 3 to 4 touchdowns a game, but he's moving the ball, making beautiful passes. Like keeping the offense driving. Zach made a great prediction last week. He almost beat the Chiefs last week. And the crazy part about that was I thought if that was going to happen, it would have been like a 15-10 game. No, it was a 30-27 game. And then this week he plays the Buccaneers, and he almost beats them. He did everything he needed to do. The Buccaneers scored a last-minute touchdown. So I guess I'm in a weird spot here where I'm like, do we think the Panthers are going to, at this point, say, hey, Bryce has really turned it around the second half of the year? And the other thing that I think they'll appreciate is whether he was starting or not starting, he was clearly taking the time to learn from Andy Dalton and from the coaching staff. Like, he's clearly very engaged and wanting to grow. Do you guys think the Panthers are going to say, hey, he's looked way better in the second half? Maybe we do have something here. And inevitably in the draft, when they have like a top 5-ish pick, do you think they're going to start looking at other positions to start building around Bryce? Or do you guys think they're going to go quarterback and say, hey, he looked good, but let's trade him for like a second round or third round pick and go draft someone else? Like, what do you guys think is going to happen?
They got to stay with Bryce at this point. And last week, I saw flashes of Mahomes that people were talking before he got drafted. The fact that he was in and out of the pocket, making throws that no other quarterback can make in the NFL. Like, literally lateral, movement, finding guys in those soft spots and cover two, coverage, right over the flat guy, but before you get to the safety. I mean, on the run, throwing it on a dime, he's still got wheels. He's getting the ball out of his hands faster. I actually saw many Mahomes clips of him throughout the last couple of weeks. So I think you have to keep him and you need to build your infrastructure. And by goodness, please go get a guy like T. Higgins in the offseason because he's going to need targets. Thielen's turning 34 next year. Coker is not good. He's trash. And for what he's going to be in terms of making Bryce good again, you're going to need a legitimate tier one. Take your money, throw it into a big time wide receiver and overpay him.
Yeah, I think there's zero question right now as to whether the Panthers are taking quarterback in the draft. I think they more or less said that in interviews. Canales has said so. And there's not really great options anyway that they're going to have. So I think you definitely at least ride it another year.
I'm so happy to see you guys change your opinion after.
And I guess that means he's not a bust.
to be clear, I'm not saying that I think he can ever be a Super Bowl caliber franchise quarterback. I'm saying with the draft class coming up, with his recent play, they just invested so much in him. You can't just I'm just saying that's what's going to happen.
No,
I'm not.
Right. I'm just more saying it because literally week 4 or 5 of the season, we were talking about they need to just trade him or cut him and move on, right? And now we're talking about how there is absolutely no way that they're going to. So that in itself proves that he's clearly won some good graces from someone, even if it's not necessarily us. He's clearly done something, right? So that just makes me happy as a young truther.
Good on the young man. We need to get to picks. We've had a lot to chat about. There's still more on the board here.
Eagles.
Yeah. The Ravens are. This Justin Tucker thing is a huge problem. Arguably cost them the game.
Yeah.
The Eagles have established themselves as one of the elite teams in the NFL, one of 4 elite teams. And the Ravens have me incredibly concerned. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I'm still not even fully sold on Jalen. I'm actually more of a Jalen truther than most people are because a lot of people were completely out on Jalen coming into this year. But even Jalen has not consistently played that great in my mind in the context of his passing. But Saquon Barkley, I know I talk about it every week, but him rushing for 250 and multiple touchdowns last week, and then coming out and owning the Ravens, it's ridiculous, bro. The Eagles, they just have too many good players to not be successful, and that's showing out. I don't even think it's the greatest coaching or the greatest this. They're just elite talent. But yeah, the Ravens, how this is why how can you trust them? I don't know. How can you trust them after they had a way better team and it was better coached last year, and they couldn't win then, and now they're doing this. I don't know, but I don't know. I like the Eagles.
So one of the prompts I wanted to broach before jumping to picks is, so there's, from a betting market standpoint, there's 4 elite, pretty clear top tier elite teams that have about the same odds to win the Super Bowl: Chiefs and Bills, Eagles and Lions. Outside of those 4 teams, who would you guys say is the most likely to make a run and win the Super Bowl? And I think I know who you're each going to pick, but I'm curious.
Okay, Zach, you go first. I also want to hear who you think we're going to pick before we make our decision too.
I'll say who I think you're going to pick after.
Okay.
All right, for me, it's the Ravens.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Sai?
I think Evan knows who I'm going to pick.
I'm very confident who's Sai's picking. Yeah.
Green Bay Packers.
And that, honestly, I think is probably the right answer. The Ravens have the talent, but they just are, like I said, they're really concerning me that they're never going to get there this year. To be contrarian, I think Packers is probably the top answer. I'm going to say the Steelers. I'm in on the Steelers right now. I think they could be a sleeper now that they're proving to me that their offense can actually win them games. So that's going to be mine. But the other shout-out.
That's a great prompt.
You picking a Russell Wilson-led team is not something I would have ever expected, but I love it.
I still don't fully believe in him, but he's playing well. And then the other two quick mentions, Mr. Brightside in the snow with the Bills absolutely dominating a team that was in the Super Bowl last year. I want the Bills to make a Super Bowl so badly for those fans. Like, it would be so electric. They're going to have to do it either at home or against the Chiefs or in Arrowhead probably. But I just want that so bad for them. That was such a cool moment. And just curb stomp the Niners. And then the Monday Night Football game was pure entertainment. Jameis Winston, an absolute Jameis classic. And Bo Nix was making some incredible throws as well. Cortland Sutton, second most underrated receiver in the NFL behind Terry McLaurin. I think that closes out my honorable mentions for this week.
Yeah,
Jameis had 6 touchdown passes, by the way.
It was a Jameis masterclass in terms of peak Jameis, like the picks, the touchdowns. Like,
I was in a league where I was pretty sure I was up like 25, and I only had David Njoku against me, and I ended up losing. Like, I'm like, what? I thought I had it in the bag. I wasn't even paying attention. And I see my buddy Sriram post, "Oh, I think I might actually win because of David Njoku," and I didn't even think it was the guy I was playing. And then I processed it for a second. I was like, "Wait, that's my opponent." And I go look. I'm like, "What?" Like, I'm like, "What is?" That was crazy. And then he ended up throwing. The funniest part of all this is I had a buddy lose because he threw a pick 6 at the end of the game, and the guy he was playing against had the Denver Broncos defense, and that sealed the deal. It's just such a funny, Jameis is just so fun, man. He's hilarious.
Shout out my cousin Mike Penny, who posted in our little cousin chat that he had placed a 2 touchdown bet on David Njoku. $10, which paid out like $175.
Hey.
But joke's on him. He doesn't know this yet, but this is what all of us are thinking. If you're willing to post that and brag that you hit this bet, how many bets does it take, unsuccessful bets, for you to post a successful bet that you bet David Njoku 2 touchdowns? Essentially what I'm saying is, how many other bets did you make before you came to that conclusion? So I think there's a lot of unsuccessful bets that he's hiding from us.
Yeah, they only share their winners, but Njoku is wild. He drops an unbelievable amount of passes, but he's actually going to be a fantasy stud the rest of the way with Jameis.
Oh yeah,
and that the interception that ended the game was should have gone to Njoku. The corner was wide open heading to the back pylon there. I was a little disappointed because I was trying to pull off a 99% to 1% going into the game comeback in our dynasty side to clinch the top seed. And that touchdown would have gotten it for me, but came up a little short. But shout out to Njoku. He's my boy. So
shout out to Jerry Jeudy, by the way, for 235 yards, but he should have had 400 if Jameis could have just put it on the pads.
Bro.
Whoever was guarding him, by the way, not Surtain, but the other guy, I mean, he's not going to see the field for the rest of the year.
And it's not just against the Broncos. Since Jameis has taken over, Jerry Jeudy has been cooking, man. He might have found it a couple of years later now that he switched teams, because obviously he was an elite prospect in a lot of people's eyes coming out of Alabama. Let's keep an eye out for him going forward. One last note, Evan, is it true that Josh Allen ended up getting double points for that?
Yeah.
That has got to be one of the craziest fantasy situations that you will ever see. The throwing and then also rushing touchdown is crazy, or receiving touchdown is crazy.
Yeah, that play was hilarious. I was in the other room, not watching because it was kind of a blowout at that point, and I just hear the announcers' reactions, freaking out to what just happened. But that play was awesome, yeah. And the shout out the Browns for running out a Jerry Jeudy, Elijah Moore, and at one point Kadarius Toney wide receiver group on Monday Night Football. Just pure comedy from the Browns, but that game was awesome. All right, should we jump into picks?
Yeah, let's do it.
Lots to talk
quick
about
on these.
Checking back at the the board. I think Cy and I tied at 8-5 from 2 weeks ago since we didn't have one last week. Zach was 7-6. Thank you for giving the a game back to us. I think it was the Panthers over the Chiefs. Appreciate that, Zach. Although it was close. You almost had that.
You almost had that, yeah.
It's worth the risk.
But Cy takes a 4-game lead into the home stretch over Zach and 7 over me. So tightening up pretty good. Thursday night football, we got a big divisional matchup. Green Bay at Detroit. Detroit's a 3-point favorite at home. Over-under is 51.5. Let's start with Zach.
I'm not overthinking this one. Lions win and cover at home.
Cy?
I may give one back to y'all here, but I'm taking the Packers to go on the road and make some noise.
I think it's going to be a great game, but I do think it's a little light. I think the Lions should be letting more points here, so I'll take them to winning cover. Next game, Jets at Dolphins. Dolphins are 6-point favorites at home. Over-under is 44.5. Let's start with Cy.
I'll take Dolphins, but I don't feel good about anything in this game.
Yeah, a little too light for me at home. They play way better because they can't, obviously play in the cold as we discussed. So I'll take them to winning cover. Zach?
Interestingly enough, Jets have been favored this season in 9 of their 12 games. They're 3-9, which is just hilarious. Give me Dolphins win and cover -6. They're not out of it yet.
Saints at Giants. Saints are 5-point favorites on the road. Over-under is 40.5. Upset special of the week. If Drew Lock is playing quarterback, I'm going to take the Giants for, I don't know, no reason in particular, but I needed a money line on the board. So Giants outright. Zach?
I think the Giants are the more talented team. Give me Giants money line outright as well.
Cy?
Yeah, it's a tough one. What'd you say the number was?
-5 to the Saints.
Wow. Damn. I'm going to take the Saints, man. I can't pick the Giants right now with Drew Lock. No offense to him. We'll take the Saints win, no cover.
All right. Atlanta at Minnesota. Minnesota's a 5.5-point favorite at home. Over-under is 45.5. Let's start with Cy.
Well, you said 4.5?
5.5.
5.5. Okay, I'm going to go Vikings win. But you know what? I'll go no cover just because, I can see the Falcons making some noise.
Yeah, I think the spread is appropriate. I will say they do not cover as well, but win.
Falcons are going to win this game. Kirk Cousins cannot play bad, especially in his old hometown. Give me the Falcons money line here.
Fun storyline. Carolina at Philadelphia. Philadelphia is a 12-point favorite at home. Over-under is 45.5. Let's start with Zach.
Bryce is playing better, but the Eagles are going to stampede. I love these type of spreads. I'm not intimidated by the -12. Philly wins and covers.
Cy?
I think I'm going to go Philly win and cover too, although don't feel amazing about it, but I think they're going to cover.
Carolina's playing well across the board. Give me no cover. I think that is too high of a number. Cleveland at Pittsburgh, rematch from the snow game a couple weeks ago on Thursday night. Pittsburgh's a 6.5-point favorite at home. Over-under is 43.5. I'll say Pittsburgh wins and covers and gets their revenge. Zach?
Pittsburgh wins, no cover. The Browns are a good football team. I love the Jameis train, and I love their DBs, Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome on the outside. There's going to be, I can guarantee you this, there's going to be a lot of fights. George Pickens will absolutely get in a fight in this game.
Cy?
I'm going to go Steelers win and cover on another Jameis pick 6 to end the game.
Classic. Vegas at Tampa. Tampa Bay is a 6.5-point favorite at home. Over-under is 46.5. Say Tampa wins and covers. I think it's a little light.
Yeah, same with me.
Yeah,
cover.
I'm with y'all.
Jacksonville at Tennessee. Tennessee's only a 4-point favorite at home. Trevor Lawrence in concussion protocol. I'd imagine he won't be able to get out of it by this game, but I don't know. Over-under is 40.5. Let's start with Zach.
I actually love this spread for Tennessee. Will Levis is actually not playing terrible. Evan and I have mentioned that this year. Despite his boneheaded plays, he's very, very accurate in throwing for a high comp percentage. Give me Tennessee to win and cover -4 at home.
Stop.
Yeah, I don't like any spread involving either of these two teams. I don't ever want to bet on either of them. So I'm going to pick the Titans to win, but with zero confidence in either of these teams.
Yeah, if this is Mac Jones, I actually quite like the spread as well. I'm not sure to maybe move a little bit, but the Titans play better at home. They're honestly, they hadn't been playing all that bad. And Zach mentioned Will Levis. So but that is contingent on the quarterback for sure. Seattle at Arizona, huge divisional matchup. Rematch from 2 weeks ago that Seattle won. Arizona is a 2.5-point favorite at home here. Over-under is 44.5. Tough one. Seattle's been playing well. I'm going to say Arizona finds a way to win and cover this one and even up the season series. Zach?
The Cardinals and the Minnesota Vikings, they seemed like it was a very even matchup. Cardinals defense was causing a lot of problems, and Geno Smith has not played great in 5 weeks. So I'm going to be hypocritical in my assessment with saying that CJ Stroud will still find a way despite not playing great. And I'm going to say that Seattle is going to continue to struggle. Give me the Cardinals win and cover -2.5.
Sorry.
What's the number again? 2.5?
2.5 for Arizona.
I'm going to go Arizona win and cover. I'm not even doing this one.
Bills at Rams. Bills are 5-point favorites on the road. Over-under is 48.5. Take the Bills to win and cover. They look like a juggernaut right now. Zach?
This is tough. Give me the Bills to win and cover.
Zach?
I'll give them the win, no cover. In LA, with the Rams playing pretty well, I'm not taking the cover.
Yeah.
Chicago at San Francisco. San Francisco remains a 4-point favorite at home. No Christian McCaffrey, no Jordan Mason. Shout out if you handcuffed Christian McCaffrey with Jordan Mason this year, as many of us did. Over-under is 43.5. Zach?
People may think that the Bears are going to have this resurgency game, and Caleb Williams did have a great second half, but the 49ers, I love this spread at home, -4.5. 49ers.
Sai?
I don't feel particularly great about the cover, and I could definitely see Chicago pulling this one out with all the injuries, but I will take Niners to win.
I'm actually giving Chicago on the money line. The Niners just aren't a very good team, period. Shout out all the Brock Purdy truthers. You are getting your due here. He's been horrible this year. They're just overall not a good team. Chargers at Chiefs, Sunday Night Football. This should be a banger. Chiefs are 3.5-point favorites at home. Over-under is 42.5. Let's start with Sai.
You know who I'm taking.
Zach?
Chargers money line.
I'm going Chargers money line as well.
You were taking too, don't worry.
We'll never learn.
I mean, the Chargers are due for a statement against the Chiefs. Division games are hard. I think that spread tells you that they think these teams are closer than they may appear by their records, and a low total as well. Monday Night Football, Cincinnati at Dallas. Cincinnati's a 5-point favorite on the road. 49.5 is your total. I'll say Cincinnati wins, but it's close. I don't know.
Cincinnati wins and covers. I love the spread.
Yeah, this is my favorite spread of the week.
This is my favorite spread.
I'm not worried about Dallas putting up that much against them. This is the game where Joe Burrow puts up 40, Dallas puts up 20, and they cover.
Do you think Dallas can put up 28 points, Evan?
Bro,
dude, literally
put up 28 against them. But the point is, I think Cincinnati will put up 50 against them.
With Micah Parkinson's and Deron Bland back, the Cowboys' defense is actually way better. That's the one shout out from the Commanders game. Their defense is actually somewhat back. So arbitrary prediction on the no cover. I just don't think Cincinnati's good at all. That's the board. Any last words, gentlemen?
No.
Evan, you're going down in fantasy this week. We're both 6-7, hunting for that final playoff spot.
Well, you're not.
My roster is healthy, thriving. I'm not sure, Si, if you saw him, projected to score 111 points this week, which is the highest in the entire league. I'm coming for you. And Scott is going up against Evan. He's 13-0. So he just needs to do his job. I'll do mine. I'm in the playoffs.
This guy's talking about how he's the highest projected this week. That's just that is not a good sign. That is not, when you're talking about you being projected 111 and that being something to hang your hat on, that is not a good sign, my friend. But hey, Evan, I'm gonna do my best for you, man, because don't get me wrong, I want to see all three of MDS get in, but I will not be taking it easy on Zach after the smack talk. So, but my team's been struggling a little bit recently, so you might be catching me at a good time. No Lamar and no Anthony Richardson, so it should be.
Yeah, but that benefits Evan just as much with no Derrick Henry on Scott's side. I'm saying,
pick my points. Yeah, Zach, your team's actually really good. I was looking at your team. It's my team's horrible. I mean, now I don't got McCaffrey. I don't have Mason. You inexplicably have been holding Isak Correndo or whatever his name is since like week 8. And I'm looking, I'm like, dude, why does Zach have this guy? So my team is terrible. Malik Neighbors lost his quarterback. Cooper Kupp has really been fading, unfortunately. So your team deserves that last spot. But yeah, the projection is going to be 50-50 with Scott, given all of his injuries. So I would love to not only spoil his perfect season, but also sneak my way into the playoffs. And hey, maybe find the, the 2019 Derrick Henry that I rode to the championship a few years ago. You never know what can happen. But yeah, my team is a disaster right now. So you deserve the spot, but I most certainly will not be going over lightly here. And,
hey, may the best man win.
One last note on that. Did you guys see who I picked up really quickly once I saw both my quarterbacks? We're going to be on a bye next week before the games ended this weekend.
Will Levis.
Jameis Winston. I'm willing to put your season on the line with Jameis Winston, most likely, Zach. And if you lose because he throws 5 touchdowns, you will never hear the end of it.
Dude, put in Levis, bro. Levis, good matchup this week.
Not starting.
He's playing well. But
yeah. Great game he had against you guys this week. Good call.
Well, you're picking Jameis over him. Jameis threw 2 pick sixes. What are we doing?
6 touchdowns.
Against the Broncos.
That might have been his way, but yeah.
That's all right. I don't need your help. I am win and in. So we'll see what happens.
You bet. Oh my gosh! If you lose, you're welcome in advance, Evan.
Well, I'm not going to win in the playoffs anyway. So
here's the thing that's scary. Actually, is Size pretty much solidified himself at 3rd place. So if I win and I like lower Size confidence level with just smacking him with my 112 projected points, I may see a rematch with another MVS member again. So Cy and I might be in a situation where if I win and Evan loses, we playing twice in a row.
That's actually the great point because Cy is heavily incentivized to help me out this week because, I mean, your team will be projected probably 10 more points than mine in first round playoff matchup. So, yeah.
My team's won 4 in a row. Well, aside from last week, I'm 4-1 in the last 5 weeks, so I'm starting to heat up a little bit. But I need Kyler to start playing well. Kyler's not been playing well lately.
As your defending champion, I hope both you guys find a way to get in. But I'm not matchup picking. I'm just gonna go try to win it either way. That's a champion's mentality, Just saying. Yeah.
Fair enough.
I don't know. You sound a little nervous.
I'm not nervous at all, Zach.
It's all internal nerves about his own team. He's not worried about anyone else but his own.
You're really gonna shake my confidence. That was a hilarious statement. I'm not scared the next week. I'm just trembling. Right. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mondays Down South. Peace out. Go Gamecocks.